Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Saira Mujtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on a 3-day official visit to Maldives to hold bilateral talks with his Maldivian counterpart Maria Ahmed Didi and Minister of Foreign Affairs Abdullah Shahid. Taliban government says that without its participation, United Nations organized conference on Afghanistan in Doha would be ineffective. Airstrikes have pounded Sudan's capital Khartoum despite a truce aimed at allowing civilians to flee. Russia launches a series of missiles at Ukrainian cities in the second pre-dawn attack in 3 days. Santiago Pena of Paraguay's ruling conservative Colorado Party has won the presidential election, beating a center-left challenger. And Labor Day protests and strikes have taken over France, Italy and the Netherlands, with workers and labor unions demanding better government policies to safeguard their rights and meet their wage demands. And now the news in detail. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has reached Malé, Maldives. During his 3-day official visit, Mr. Singh will hold bilateral talks with his Maldivian counterpart, Maria Ahmed Didi, and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Abdullah Shahid. The minister will also call on Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Saleh. According to the Defence Ministry, the entire gamut of bilateral defence relations will be reviewed during the deliberations. In tune with India's commitment to capacity building of friendly countries, the Defence Minister will gift one fast patrol vessel and a landing craft to the Maldives National Defence Forces. During his stay, Mr. Singh will also visit the ongoing project sites and interact with the Indian diaspora. India and the Maldives are working closely to effectively address shared challenges, including maritime security, terrorism, radicalization, piracy, trafficking, organized crime and natural disasters. India's vision of security and growth for all in the region, or SAGAR, along with its Neighbourhood First policy, as well as Maldives' India First policy, seek to work together to jointly develop the capabilities within the Indian Ocean region. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on Defence Minister's visit to Maldives and strategic importance of India-Maldives relations. The participants are former Ambassador Anil Wadhwa and AIR correspondent Lalima Aneja Dang.
Mr. Wadhwa, I would like to ask you first of all that the Defence Ministry in a statement said that the Defence Minister's visit will be an important landmark in building strong bonds of friendship between the two countries. How do you highlight the significance of the visit of our Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, to Maldives?
So this 3-day visit by the Defence Minister to Maldives is extremely significant not only for India and Maldives relationship but also for the region as a whole, because during this visit he is supposed to hold bilateral talks not only with his counterpart Maria Ahmed Didi and also the Minister of Foreign Affairs Abdullah Shahid. He is also calling on the Maldivian President Ibrahim Mohamed Saleh. And in this visit, the entire gamut of our bilateral defence relationship will be reviewed during these deliberations. India is committed to capacity building of friendly countries, especially under its Neighbourhood First policy, and therefore the Defence Minister is gifting one fast patrol vessel ship and a landing craft to the Maldives National Defence Forces. But more importantly, he is also visiting the ongoing project sites and also interacting with the 23,000 strong Indian diaspora there. Now, both India and Maldives have in recent years worked very closely to effectively address the shared challenges that they have. And that includes things like maritime security, terrorism, radicalization issues, piracy, trafficking, organized crime and natural disasters. Then of course we have the vision of India, which is security and growth for all in the region. SAGAR is the acronym, along with its Neighbourhood First policy that I mentioned, and Maldives India First policy, which we've seen under this current government. So we seek to work together to jointly develop our capabilities within the Indian Ocean region. And that is why this visit is of added significance.
Mr. Wadhwa, you've given us a nice overview of the Defence Minister's visit. To think that Maldives' proximity to the west coast of India, which is about barely 70 nautical miles away from Minicoy and 300 nautical miles away from India's west coast, as you said, neighborhood first policy can be an advantage to both the countries. In fact, India was the first to assist Maldives during the 2004 tsunami as well as the water crisis in Male in the December of 2014. How else do you think the proximity of Maldives to our country, India, can benefit both the countries, and the importance, especially in the defense area, if I may be more specific?
The Maldives assumes a very special place in the security of the region, and the security of Maldives is crucial for maintaining this region's political stability and security, and also for safeguarding the Indian commerce and investments, because I think both countries have a responsibility to ensure stability and security in the Indian Ocean region. Along with Sri Lanka and Maldives, India sees both these countries as a part of its greater strategy, and it gels also with India's partnership in the Quad specific strategy, the Indo-Pacific strategy, which, as you know, brings together India with US, Japan and Australia. Now, despite its small size, a number of developed and developing nations are now courting the Maldives because it has a strategic significance in a geographic location in relation to some very important international shipping lanes. We know that the Indian Ocean is a major route for the transfer of energy and trade around the world, and the Strait of Malacca and the Gulf of Aden, the two choke points as we know them, in the Western Indian Ocean are located on either side of Maldives, which is situated physically like what we could call a toll gate between them. And also the management and use of marine resources sustainably is crucial for India's success in the blue economy. So it's important that we have a supportive government and a stable government in Maldives with whom we can do business and which does not bring about influences which are inimical to these interests.
And is that the reason why precisely we have gifted one fast petrol vessel ship and a landing aircraft to the Maldives National Defense Forces?
Yes, so this development is of course part of an ongoing strategy that India has vis-a-vis Maldives. And this strategy is aimed at making sure that there is stability in the Maldives, that they are not threatened by hostile neighborhood. If you remember, in November of 1988, there were about 80 armed militants of the People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Eelam landed in Maldives along with local defector allies who had infiltrated the country and then began a coup d'etat. And of course, this plot was planned by Sri Lanka, by the Tamil nationalists, and was an attempt by a Maldivian businessman and a politician opposed to the regime of the day, led by Abdul Gayoom, to gain control. So the coup was a result of the spillover from the civil war happening in Sri Lanka. But India very effectively intervened even after the insurgents took control of the airport in Male. And because Gayoom, who fled, asked for military aid from India on the 3rd of November. So India has responded by sending 1,600 troops in a military operation. If you remember, it was codenamed Operation Cactus. Within 12 hours of the request, the coup attempt was squashed and full control was obtained within the country. And India's intervention was also endorsed by other nations such as the US, the Soviet Union, United Kingdom, and its neighbors Nepal and Bangladesh. So we've always had the security of Maldives as paramount, and now there's an added stress which has arisen because Maldives has become attractive for terrorist organizations like Islamic State, Pakistan-based madrasas and jihadist groups. And we saw a phase where Islamic radicalism was on the rise on the island nation for a number of reasons, chiefly amongst them being political instability and socio-economic uncertainty. Now, of course, this raises the risk that terrorist organizations with a base in Pakistan could use distant Maldivian islands as a jumping-off point for strikes against India and Indian interests. And therefore, political stability in the region and in Maldives is extremely important from India's point of view.
You talked about Sri Lanka. We found that Sri Lanka has been kind of a victim of Chinese influence as far as debt trap diplomacy is concerned. Are we trying to ensure that we encourage the economics of the Maldives economy so that the Chinese influence on the third world countries of the typical debt trap diplomacy doesn't touch Maldives and we fill the gap?
Yes, so Chinese strategic presence has continued to grow in this area which surrounds India. And Maldives is actually a significant pearl, if I might call it, in China's string of pearls strategy in South Asia. And there are speculations, have been speculations that China may be attempting to establish its own military base in the Maldives because of its strategic location in the Indian Ocean. It has bought a number of islands in the Maldives, and this development took place especially during the previous government in Maldives, which was very much pro-China. But the relations between India and Maldives are essential for the stability of the Indo-Pacific and its maritime security, and therefore India is wary of these developments. There was also a move by the Chinese to establish a listening post in the form of an observatory in Maldives during the previous government, and the project was shelved by the current government. So obviously there is continued attempts by the Chinese to establish an influence there, and we will continue to see that happening going forward. So it is up to India and Maldives to work out arrangements by which they stand on their own feet economically and at the same time have the capability through India's help to deter any kind of external interference in their security relationships.
Right. Mr. Wadhwa, tourism is one of the major sources of income for Maldives. It's a very beautiful country. When it comes to soft diplomacy, are we also trying to ensure that they are economically strong? And this kind of a visit, as you said, we have about 23,000 Indians there, and the defense minister is likely to interact with the Indian diaspora. This also becomes a medium of cultural exchange. Now, when that happens, as you said, we would like to have Maldives on its own feet. Does that also help us?
Yes, the diaspora is a very important link, and 23,000 strong Indian diaspora in Maldives is extremely important given the small population of the island nation. And of course, during all the visits that have taken place from India, the ministerial visits especially, we have always stressed the fact that we have invested in each other's prosperity, and there the diaspora is going to play a very, very important role. It is good that the tourism between India and Maldives has grown tremendously. And we have seen that especially after the pandemic and even during the pandemic, we had bubbles which were established with Maldives where the main tourists were mainly Indians, which kept on propping up the Maldivian economy, which is heavily dependent on tourism. So there is this cultural connect between Maldives and the southern Indian states, especially Kerala, for instance, and that connect needs to be nurtured and also advanced in the future. This will keep away any kind of external influence in the internal affairs of Maldives, which is inimical to this relationship.
So Maldives is one of the biggest beneficiaries of India's neighborhood first policy. In fact, the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, when he made his overseas trip, it was Maldives which was the first country which he visited after he got into the second term. Last year, PM Modi and Soli kick-started the India-funded Greater Malay Connectivity Project, GMCP, largest infrastructure initiative in Maldives. How are these investments helping in Maldives gaining confidence? As earlier, it was strained in the pro-China regime of former Maldives Prime Minister.
Yes, so I think economic assistance to Maldives is very much an important factor in this relationship today. As you know, during the previous regime, there was a big debt which was owed to China because of the reckless policies of the previous government, which gave in to the opaque projects which were put forward by the Chinese government at that point in time. And then we saw a situation in Maldives where the new government was faced with paying for this debt at the cost of any kind of development in the island country. Fortunately, India stepped forward and through its grants and also its loans to Maldives has bailed the country out. Maldives is doing pretty well at the moment because of this input, and at the same time it requires important infrastructure and connectivity projects. So the Greater Malay Connectivity Project is a part of that strategy to connect the three major islands, which will bring about connectivity and economic prosperity to the island nation. It will lead also to an increase in tourism, and in terms of employment, it will become an important factor going forward. We will need similar projects in the future. This is not the end of it. And when Prime Minister Modi visited in 2019, after taking over the reins of government for his second consecutive term, then we saw a similar kind of bent as far as Maldives is concerned, where both countries committed themselves to working closely with each other in terms of capacity building in Maldives and making sure that the goodwill which is reflected today in this relationship is maintained going forward. And let's not forget that through the years, India has been a major provider of disaster relief assistance to the Maldives. So whether it is a tsunami or whether it is a water crisis or whether it is a crisis where foodstuffs or medicines have to be delivered, the government of India has always come forward with financial help and help in terms of the difficulties that Maldives has faced from time to time.
Right, so we earnestly hope that our Defence Minister's visit to Maldives is yet another stepping stone for our greater, very robust foreign relations, which everybody the world over we've been appreciated for. Thank you very much, Mr. Wadhwa, for talking to us.
Thank you.
That was our hotspot section, and now in some more news. Chief of Air Staff of the Indian Air Force, Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary, arrived in Sri Lanka on Monday on a 4-day official visit to the island nation. The visit comes at the invitation of Air Marshal Sudarshana Patharana, Commander of the Sri Lankan Air Force, and symbolizes the strong relations and close cooperation between the two countries. Sri Lanka has been accorded the status of Priority 1 partner by India. During his visit, the Indian Air Chief Marshal will make courtesy calls on Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, and hold meetings with senior officials. Mr. Chaudhary will lay the foundation stone for the India-Sri Lanka Friendship Auditorium at the Sri Lanka Air Force Academy, Trincomalee, which is being built with a grant of 250 million Lankan rupees from the Government of India. The visit will facilitate discussions on common security challenges and enhancing capacity and capability building initiatives towards ensuring security and growth for all in the region, as propounded by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Taliban government says that without its participation, United Nations organized conference on Afghanistan in Doha would be ineffective. The Afghan government has not been invited to attend the 2-day meeting. Abdul Qahar Balqi, the Taliban Foreign Ministry spokesperson, told a news channel that any meeting about Afghanistan without the participation of the Afghan government is ineffective and counterproductive. Envoys from the United States, China and Russia, as well as major European aid donors and key neighbors such as Pakistan, are among the representatives from about 25 countries and groups called to the 2 days of closed-door talks by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in the capital of Qatar on Monday. Last week, the UN chief said that de facto Afghan rulers would not be invited to the meeting to discuss the dire humanitarian situation in the country and its international isolation. This is All India Radio giving you the world news. Welcome back. Airstrikes have pounded Sudan's capital Khartoum despite a truce aimed at allowing civilians to flee. The army said it was attacking the city to flush out its paramilitary rivals, the Rapid Support Forces RSF. The fighting intensified even as the warring sides said they would extend the truce by another 3 days. More than 500 deaths have been reported, with the true number of casualties believed to be much higher. Millions remain trapped in Khartoum. Army Commander General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and RSF Chief General Mohammad Hamdan Dagalo are vying for power and disagree in particular about plans to include the RSF into the army. The generals agreed to a humanitarian truce after intensive diplomatic efforts by neighboring countries, that is the US, UK and UN. It was extended but did not hold. According to the army, it remains unclear on what they will do in the next stage of the deal arrived at with US and Saudi mediation. Russia has launched a series of missiles at Ukrainian cities in the second pre-dawn attack in 3 days. Pavlorad, a logistics hub near the central city of Dnipro, was hit ahead of a much-anticipated counter-offensive by Ukraine. The strike sparked a major fire, destroyed dozens of houses, and wounded 34 people. Hours later, the air raid alert sounded across the country, with capital Kyiv among the targets. Across the country, the Ukrainian army said it shot down 15 of the 18 cruise missiles that had been fired. Santiago Peña of Paraguay's ruling conservative Colorado Party has won the presidential election, beating a center-left challenger. With almost all ballots counted, Mr. Peña, an economist, got more than 42% electoral officials say. Efrain Alegre, candidate of the Concertación Nacional coalition, had nearly 28%. He later admitted defeat. The Colorado Party has dominated the political scene in the landlocked South American nation for more than 70 years. Sunday's presidential poll was decided in a single round of voting. Addressing his supporters, Mr. Peña, 44, called for nationwide unity and consensus. Paraguay's economy is expected to grow by more than 4% this year, but the country has relatively high levels of poverty and corruption. Labour Day protests and strikes have taken over France, Italy and the Netherlands, with workers and labour unions demanding better government policies to safeguard their rights and meet their wage demands. French President Emmanuel Macron faced nationwide protests in the country, with demonstrators denouncing his pension reform, which saw the retirement age increasing from 62 to 64 in the country. The legislation also requires people to work 43 years to receive a full pension, among other changes to the system. In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also faced demonstrations from labour unions who called on her government to increase wages and reform the country's tax policy. Meloni's government is set to unveil a labour package on Monday amid the protests. Labour Day protests also took over the Netherlands, which saw unions demanding higher wages. Due to inflation, employees of the largest labour union in the Netherlands, FNV, had offered its employees a wage increase of 3 to 7% this year, followed by a 5% increase next year and automatic price compensation with a maximum of 5% from 2025 onwards. The origins of Labour Day can be traced back to the late 19th century, when workers across the globe began demanding better working conditions, fair wages and shorter working hours. International Labour Day is celebrated in more than 80 countries, including India, Cuba and China. People in different parts of the world hold marches on this day to promote the rights of working class people and to protect them from exploitation. Labour Day is celebrated around the world to raise awareness of the rights of working people and to protect them from exploitation. It also serves as a reminder of the important role played by the working class in our society. India has said that to promote universal holistic health, it is important to recognize and respect cultural diversity and integrate traditional healing practices into modern healthcare systems. Co-chair of Science 20 and President of Indian National Science Academy, Professor Ashutosh Kumar Sharma, addressed the opening session of Science 20 in Lakshadweep today. He said, this approach will promote not only health and well-being, but also help to maintain cultural identity and values. He said a bouquet of approaches is needed to achieve holistic healthcare delivered to everyone in an inclusive, equitable and just fashion. 48 delegates from G20 countries are participating in the two-day meet held as part of India's G20 presidency. Turkish forces have killed the suspected leader of Islamic State IS, Abu Hussein al-Qureshi, in Syria. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has announced that Qureshi is believed to have taken over the group after his predecessor died in a raid in February. Mr. Erdogan told broadcaster TRT Turk the IS leader was neutralized in a Turkish MIT intelligence agency operation on Saturday. Mr. Erdogan said, we will continue our struggle with terrorist organizations without any discrimination. IS has so far made no comments on the reported operation. Pope Francis has urged Hungarians to open doors to migrants, ending his visit to the country led by a nationalist anti-immigration cabinet. Speaking at an open-air mass in the capital Budapest, the pontiff said it was sad and painful to see doors closed to people who were unlike us. Up to 1 lakh people attended the mass, including Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Addressing the crowd near the Hungarian parliament building on Sunday, Pope Francis pleaded to everyone, including those with political and social responsibilities, to be more open. Mr. Orban has criticized migration, building a barbed wire border fence to stop migrants crossing into Hungary. US President Joe Biden and South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol have agreed to strengthen South Korea's defenses and regularly deploy US strategic assets. Both the leaders held a summit last week during which Biden pledged to give Seoul more insight into its nuclear planning over any conflict with North Korea as anxiety grows over Pyongyang's weapons programs and the American nuclear umbrella. As part of the efforts, a U.S. Navy nuclear-armed ballistic missile submarine will visit South Korea for the first time since the 1980s. North Korea today criticized the U.S.-South Korea agreement to bolster the deployment of American strategic assets in the region. State media KCNA termed the agreement as most hostile and aggressive action against North Korea. At least 18 people were killed and 33 injured when a bus fell off a cliff in western Mexico, local authorities said yesterday. The prosecutor's office in Nayarit, the state where the accident occurred, said the vehicle fell some 15 meters down a ravine on Saturday night on a highway that connects state capital Tepic and the tourist destination of Puerto Vallarta. The prosecutor's office said in a statement shared on Twitter that from the first moment they have worked in a coordinated manner with various federal and state authorities to provide immediate attention to victims. Authorities reported that 11 women and 7 men were killed. At least 11 minors have been transferred to hospitals for medical attention. The International Apparel and Textile Fair (IATF) has returned to Dubai in 2023 for its 15th edition. The fair is known as the premier platform for sourcing apparels, fashion fabrics, prints, clothing, accessories, home textiles, footwear and more in the UAE. This year's event will showcase the spring-summer collections and autumn-winter highlights of 2023-24. With over 200 plus exhibitors from 22 plus countries, IATF aims to expand, with each becoming a major influence in UAE's fashion scene. The India Pavilion, jointly organized by Apparel Export Promotion Council, Ministry of Textiles and Federation of Indian Export Organization, boasts of 67 stalls showcasing a variety of Indian textiles for exports. And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh on a 3-day official visit to Maldives to hold bilateral talks with his Maldivian counterpart Maria Ahmed Didi and Minister of Foreign Affairs Abdullah Shahid. Taliban government says that without its participation, United Nations organized conference on Afghanistan in Doha would be ineffective. Airstrikes have pounded Sudan's capital, Khartoum, despite a truce aimed at allowing civilians to flee. Russia launches a series of missiles at Ukrainian cities in the second pre-dawn attack in 3 days. Santiago Peña of Paraguay's ruling conservative Colorado Party has won the presidential election, beating a center-left challenger. And Labor Day protests and strikes have taken over France, Italy and the Netherlands, with workers and labor unions demanding better government policies to safeguard their rights and meet their wage demands. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Norway. And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.